Yes, the brand new Camry XSE with the V6, fully optioned out, $38,000. That is some serious coin. So let's start to break down what you're getting for that type of cash. Now you've seen the exterior montage of this Camry, and this is a completely new direction for Toyota and this vehicle. I would say that the Camry has almost become a brand within a brand. Everybody has had some type of interaction with this car at some point in time. It's been around forever. It sells great. It's been super reliable. There's literally no drama with this. So why did they have to go kind of off the deep end in terms of trying to inject so much style on the interior and exterior? Well, let's cover that. Now, many of the exterior elements have been injected onto the interior space. And if you are a geometry teacher, let me tell you, you're going to be ripping your shirt off in excitement. You best bring your calipers and your little measuring tools in here because there are so many different lines, curves, angles, and just sweeping textures in here that you're going to love it. And I think this is a big bonus to this interior space. You can tell that Toyota was trying. You have matte plastics, you have gloss plastics, you have these textured materials on the passenger side, and the way that the lines kind of intersect with the center stack and the center console area. It's really neat to see in a world where a lot of mid-sized cars are just so bland on the interior. And when I talked to my Honda rep after I saw the brand new Accord, I said, gone are the days of putting in a half-ass effort on your mid-size and your small cars. And that's largely because people are moving away from this segment to SUVs or CUVs. And you can't just get by on your name anymore. And Toyota understands that here. And it's really important that you get a lot for your money. And one of the things here is the level of comfort. So let's go over the pros. The seat design, the seating comfort, and your position in here is tremendous. You feel so good all the time. They haven't resorted to gimmicks on a lot of things. Many of the manufacturers are going to this shift-by-wire crap where it's a digi-stick. You don't know what gear you're in. It's just like a video game controller. This, you have physical detents. So that's a great thing. The other thing that they've done is they've kept all the physical controls, despite how generic this kind of center console area is where the infotainment is. You still have rotary knobs for all the common functions that you use every single day, and there is absolutely no guesswork to what anything is. All your buttons on the steering wheel are legible. You can read them. You know what they do. Your armrests open positively. You know, they click closed. You know, your buttons and switches everywhere are top notch, and I think that is what Toyota does extremely well compared to all its competitors. They've kept what's worked in the past and injected it into their new cars, and I like that. Now on to the cons. First is these doors sound like tin cans, and I think one of the large parts is they're so long. It's almost like a coupe door, and it allows this vehicle to have this huge kind of opening to get in and out, and then of course the negative part of that is you have to be kind of stretch out to close these doors. And I think if you really have shorter arms or you're a smaller person, you're going to hate it. The second negative part is, despite the diversity of materials, it was like somebody in the design department said, we have all this shiny black plastic in stock and we got to use it somewhere. And they put it on one of the highest traffic areas in the car, the center stack, where you're interacting with it every day. Your knobs and switches, your HVAC control, your touchscreen, and this is where all the fingerprints and dust go. It really sucks. And they've used matte plastic everywhere else. They got rid of the glossy black plastic on the center console, the doors, so I don't get it. The last thing is the right rear passenger speaker doesn't work. It seems like it's a loose connection. I've kicked the door. It kind of comes in and out. I mean, it's just one of those weird quality issues. Now, one of the last negatives, which could also be a positive, is the infotainment and the center gauge cluster. So let's go over that. Toyota and Lexus have constantly been bagged on the fact that they don't have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay in pretty much any of their cars. And the excuses are varied and mostly nonsensical. You don't have it in here, and there's no promise that we'll ever get updated to get it. So that's a first negative for a lot of people. The next thing is, while everything is quick and usable, Toyota has this ridiculous problem with focusing on industrial design and industrial user interfaces instead of making it look good and intuitive. Now, everything, again, is quick to get around because you have physical controls to get to every menu option, which is great. but it just doesn't look very good. It looks so dated. Again, you can tell they focused, whoever is manufacturing this for them is focused on industrial design rather than like a pretty graphical user interface. But let's get on to the more important things. The people that probably care about this car are gonna wanna know. All right, I talked about this in the front. Comfort, comfort, comfort. That is what the Camry is about in terms of interior space. The seats are so plush. And, you know, I'm one of those people that really appreciates a sporty, supportive seat in a certain type of car, not in this one. And it does not disappoint. The back seats are so good. I mean, you could sit back here for most of the day. The front seats are amazing. And as you can tell, my travel companions, Sonny and Randall, really enjoyed the back seat space. They got seat belted in, and we literally had a party back here. Last but not least is storage space. This is not a hatchback. It's not a CUV, so don't expect storage like that. But when you open this trunk, as I thought the first time I opened it, it is a labyrinth. There is no excuse for not fitting your wheelchair, your oxygen tank, your blow-up dolls, your kids, your weight set. I don't know what the hell you can't fit in here, but with the seats down, it's tremendous. I like it a lot. Yes, the width isn't as big as you would expect on bigger cars, but for most people, do you really need more than this? I don't know. I'll let you answer that one. Let's head into the shop, take a look at the Camry's new architecture, and see what there is to see. Welcome to the In the Shop segment with the brand new Toyota Camry. This is your chance to take a look at the underbody, much like you do the exterior interior. Now, once you understand a lot of how this works, it makes more sense when you drive it. Now, this is built on the TNGA architecture, or Toyota's new global architecture. And what that means is bits and pieces, this entire body, from the subframe, the suspension design, and all of that is partly what makes up this car. And it's also shared with other models. This is specifically riding on the GAK platform, which is shared with the RAV4, the Avalon, and the Lexus ES. So manufacturers build this architecture to be modular enough to make multiple cars off of it. And this is what saves them a lot of money in manufacturing, and it also enables them to bring out multiple cars to the market a lot easier. Now, if you screw this up, all these cars under this architecture can be absolute crap, and we've seen this in the past with many vehicles that just miss the point. And with this specific Camry, they've made a lot of adjustments in terms of manufacturing, lighter weight, more rigidity, all the phrases that you constantly hear manufacturers trying to throw at you. So what you have is a strut-based front suspension. Pretty much everything on this car is stamped steel. There's not a lot of aluminum being used here. But the one thing you're going to notice on the front of this is how easy it is to access everything. Yes, you do have plastic aero panels that go to, basically all the way back of the car, but they're extremely easy to remove. There's not a million fasteners. You can get at your oil drain plug. You can get at the oil filter easily. It just seems extremely easy to service. You can see a massive space here to get up into the engine bay, and that's because, again, this is a architecture that can be also modified to fit an all-wheel drive car like the RAV4. So there's a ton of space for a drive shaft to go back, so it makes it really easy on the front-wheel drive car to get in at everything. And that's a big pro if you're going to plan on keeping this for a long time. Now, in the front, you had struts. In the back, you have a multi-link design, which is really common for a car like this. Everything is steel, just like the front. Stamped steel lower control arms, your trailing arm, your upper control arm, and then your hub or your knuckle design is all steel. And much like the front, everything is extremely accessible back here. You're not going to be fighting with anything. Your subframe's easy to get to. The plastics are easy to get to. And it's just a car that is mostly going to be easy to service for somebody. Now there's an electronic parking brake, which is about the only bummer back here, but for the most part, it's pretty basic looking. Now before I talk about the engine, it's time to talk about weight. The Camry XSE with the V6 is 3,680 pounds. That's with a full tank of fuel. Now this has a almost 60-40 weight distribution, 60% in the front, sporty in the rear, and that's because it's front engine, front wheel drive. It has a 53% cross balance, which means you want a 50%, so left to right balance should be about 50%, and this is 53, and it's about average. Now, onto the motor. This is Toyota's tried and true 3.5 liter V6 that's been around forever, and it's been changed and modified, and this has the D4S system, and all that means is it's dual injection, port and direct injection. Most modern cars are going to direct injection for fuel economy savings, for emissions control. They can do tricks with keeping the engine cooler, and by adding port, you're eliminating a lot of the problems that you had with direct injection only, like carbon buildup and some of the emissions related issues with EGR and all that. But this has been around for a while, and now it's completely reliable for Toyota, and they were one of the first people to mainstream this. So this is one of the best parts about the XSE. It's going to be reliable, it's going to be smooth, it's going to be efficient, and it gives this car a level of refinement that the four-cylinder motors don't have. So let's take this for a drive and let's see how it does. Setting off in the Camry XSE. This has a V6, an 8-speed automatic, and there's a few primary reasons why you would buy such a vehicle as this at this price point. One of the biggest things about this Camry that you're going to notice right off the bat is its level of refinement. It is so smooth. It is pretty quiet for the segment. This is a straight-up cruiser. Now, one of the big pros about the new architecture, a new platform that this Camry's on, it doesn't feel like 500 pounds of fat. It doesn't feel like you're driving a living room couch around. Yes, the comfort level is extremely high, but there is some liveliness to it. When you steer, when you turn, it doesn't feel like it's rolling over on itself. Now, there are some negatives to this entire experience because clearly this was designed for a very specific type of person. Don't expect this because it's got a V6 and 300 horsepower and an 8-speed to set the world afire. I feel like Toyota has dumbed down almost every aspect of the driving experience to make sure that the transmission's always upshifting as quick as possible. It's not particularly fast to downshift, and the motor, there's no way this car is putting down or putting out its entire 300 horsepower. It's always being electronically controlled somehow. Now, before I get into that, let's talk about its best feature, is that this thing is unbelievably good on every single road surface without resorting to ridiculous suspension architecture, without having air ride or any of that. It just floats over every surface, and that's one of the best parts about it. And I made some complaints when I first got in this because I just got out of the Stinger GT, and that's got adaptive suspension. It's supposed to be this GT car, and it just did not ride well over broken pavement. And you get in here and this is a straight up dream. I would rather drive this every day because of the comfort factor than the Stinger. Now, there's literally no harshness. There's no just crazy vibration or shock to your seat or your body, the steering wheel, whenever you get over bad pavement. And I think for somebody that's looking for this car, it is really what you would expect from an entry-level luxury car. Honestly, it does it better than a lot of those cars while still maintaining an element of fun to drive. And I think that's the key thing. Most people that are buying a Camry aren't buying this for a sporty experience. They're buying it to keep it, that they know it's not going to break, that it's going to ride well, it's going to do everything you need. Now, one of the reasons you get a V6 is acceleration. I'm going to turn off the traction and stability control. I'm going to put this in sport. Now, this is one of the reasons why I think Toyota has completely taken over control of this car with the stability and the traction control, because when you turn it off and you put it in manual mode and you launch from a start, it is an absolute mess. Here we go. This entire acceleration run after the car set off and had a ton of wheel spin was absolutely 100% neutered. The power was being cut. Even though there was no spin, there was no traction loss, it was cutting the power by at least 60 to 70%. And you could feel it. I mean, it was slow through second, slow through third. And this is what I'm talking about. They know that people aren't going to drive this hardcore, and they've attempted to make it overly safe. I don't think that this car can put down the 300 horsepower from the V6. It's not that it's got a ton of torque or horsepower, but it just doesn't feel like it's designed for it. There's torque steer when you accelerate. So I think, you know, when you mash it, the stability control system's like, what is it doing? How do we control the power of the wheels? And it really neuters the entire experience of this car. And I would still say get the V6 because it is so silky smooth. You don't get the weirdness like you do from a 4-popper, but it's not what it should be in terms of performance. You know, people are gonna wonder, you know, how's everything else? And I'm gonna just say this is the best Camry they've ever made in terms of, you know, being a good car to drive every day and then giving you some elements of performance. Braking's good, steering is the best it's ever been. I mean, there's just so little to complain about. And the things that are here to complain about are mostly because it's front wheel drive, and, you know, they put a powerful motor in a car that can't particularly put it down in this suspension configuration. Final thoughts on the Toyota Camry XSE with the V6, and I just said the keyword, V6. This is why you're gonna buy this model. As every other manufacturer is going to 4 cylinders, there's a level of refinement and smoothness here that you're not gonna find elsewhere. Now let's get onto the pros and cons list. The big pro is this new architecture that I talked about. It has transformed the Camry and will transform their other vehicles into something that was more of a comfortable, sloppy, disconnected drive to something that you get behind the wheel and you feel something. The handling is finally there, the directness is finally there, and the steering, the braking, and the overall, well, performance. Now, the second thing is the comfort level in here is amazing. The overall room, and just the way that you feel driving this car, it is very solid. The last pro is huge, and it's gonna continue to be in the Camry lineup. Is a residual, or the resale value is so high on this, and reliability and ease to service. I mean, this is a great combination if you're gonna keep a car, and why they sell so many of these. This has gotta be the best Camry ever made. Now, the negatives are there, and I think the big negative for me is the way that this V6 with this automatic transmission performs is they've left so much off the table. And I think, you know, if you're gonna have a V6 and you're gonna leave that in this lineup, you gotta make it quicker to respond. You gotta make it get its power down better and you gotta feel more, because the competitors that are doing Turbo 4s are quicker than this, and it shouldn't be. There's no excuse for it. And I think that's my biggest problem with this car. The second thing is kind of the quirkiness on the interior. The center stack design carries over too much from the exterior. They need to kind of clean that up a little bit, but overall there's so much good about this. I hope you take a look at it as, you know, compared to some of the other mid-sized cars, and I hope that helps. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.